I knew I was dying when I heard her start to confess. Not because the machines around me beeped slower, or because the nurses whispered outside my hospital room door like they were already mourning. No. I knew because she finally looked at me, really looked, and her face crumpled like she couldn't hold the lies in anymore. I was supposed to be unconscious. Sedated. I wasn't. Let me tell you the story from the beginning. My name's Evan. I'm 36 years old. Small town guy. Grew up fixing tractors, now I fix HVAC systems for a living. Married to the same woman, Hannah, for 12 years. We built a life out of leftover dreams and second-hand furniture, and for the most part, I thought we were happy. No, I knew we were happy. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. The first crack started small, like all betrayals do. It was 2 months before the accident. I noticed her pulling away. Not physically, she still kissed me goodbye every morning, still laughed at my dumb jokes. It was the space between us that changed. A cold draft sneaking into a warm house. She started humming again, old songs, soft under her breath. Songs she hadn't sung since before we got married. She took longer showers. Smiled at her phone sometimes like it had whispered a private joke. And maybe I should have said something. Asked. Pushed. But I didn't. Because love, when it's real, trusts first and questions later. Or maybe I was just a coward. The night before the crash, she was curled up on the couch, scrolling, laughing at something I couldn't see. I sat beside her. Close enough to touch. But she didn't lean into me the way she used to. She just smiled that tight, polite smile, the one strangers give you in grocery store aisles, and kept scrolling. I chalked it up to stress. Work. Bills. Life. I told myself we were fine. But deep down, something was already broken. I woke up after the crash with tubes in my arms and the smell of antiseptic burning my nose. White ceilings. Beeping machines. Voices just out of reach, like echoes in a tunnel. They told me I was lucky to be alive. They lied. I had 2 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and a concussion that left my memory smeared like wet ink across the last 24 hours. But I remembered enough. The call. The road. The headlights. And somewhere in all that fog, Hannah's voice. Crying. At first, I thought I dreamed it. The way she clutched my hand, her tears splattering the stiff white sheets. The way she whispered, I'm so sorry, over and over again. I told myself it was the drugs. The trauma. She was sorry because I was hurt, not because she had anything to hide. Because what other reason could there be? Hannah was my person. My home. My ride or die. She'd been with me when we couldn't afford heating in the winter, when I worked double shifts to make rent. She was there when I buried my father. She was there when we found out we couldn't have kids and still said, it's okay, it's still us. I refused to believe anything bad about her. When I finally gained enough strength to talk, she was the first face I saw. Sitting there in the stiff plastic chair, hoodie rumpled, eyes hollow like she'd been awake for days. Hey, you, she said, voice cracking. I smiled weakly. Or at least, I tried. She leaned in, brushed hair off my forehead with trembling fingers. You scared the hell out of me, she whispered. I wanted to say so much. That I loved her. That I was sorry for scaring her. That everything would be okay. But my throat was raw, and all that came out was a hoarse, broken, water. She laughed and cried at the same time, reaching for the pitcher, fumbling with the cup like her hands didn't remember how to work. And for a moment, just a moment, I believed everything was still okay. Maybe the distance I felt before, the late nights, the secret of smiles, maybe it really was just my imagination. Maybe trauma makes you invent ghosts. The hospital days blurred together after that. Sleep, painkillers, whispered conversations I was too fogged to understand. Hannah was there every day, always at my bedside. Always holding my hand. But every so often, when she thought I was sleeping, I caught her staring at me with this look, a mix of grief and guilt so heavy it felt like it could crack the floor beneath us. One afternoon, when she thought I was out cold, I heard her whisper into my hand. "I never meant to hurt you, Evan. I swear to God, I never meant for any of this to happen." I wanted to open my eyes. I wanted to ask, "What do you mean?" But fear glued me to the bed. Because somewhere deep in my bones, I already knew. Whatever this was, it had already happened. And I wasn't sure if I could survive hearing it out loud. It was a Thursday afternoon when the first real crack in the mirror finally split wide open. I'd been moved out of ICU by then, into a quieter corner of the hospital where the walls were beige and the clock on the wall ticked just a little too loud. Hannah came every day, like clockwork. But that day, she was late. The nurses were changing my floor when a different woman walked in. Not Hannah. Not family. A friend, maybe. I didn't recognize her, blonde, hair in a messy bun, scrubs wrinkled like she'd pulled a double shift. She smiled awkwardly. "Hi, Evan, right? I'm Casey. I'm one of the nurses on rotation. Just brought some things your wife dropped off." She placed a small bag on the side table, a fresh hoodie, a charger, a paperback I recognized, the detective novels Hannah used to steal from my side of the bed. "Thanks," I croaked. She hesitated, shifting from foot to foot. Something in her face, pity. Or guilt. Then she said it. Soft. Almost a whisper. "She's been visiting a lot. With your friend. It's nice, having support like that." I frowned. "Friend?" Casey's cheeks turned pink, like she realized she'd stepped somewhere she shouldn't have. "Oh, I just meant, the guy. The one who's been coming with her. You know, tall, dark jacket, tattoos." Tattoos. My stomach nodded. I didn't have a lot of friends who fit that description. But I knew one who did. Liam. My so-called best friend since high school. The guy who punched my shoulder when I landed my first real job. Who toasted us at our wedding, glass held high, shouting, to Hannah and Evan, "May you never need anything but each other." The same Liam who used to joke that if he ever found a girl like Hannah, he'd chain himself to her forever. I laughed then. Laughed because I believed it was harmless. Now my mouth tasted like acid. "Has he been here often?" I asked carefully. Casey shrugged. "A few times, yeah. Mostly when visiting hours are about to end. I guess, hospitals aren't easy for some people." She gave me a sympathetic look. Like she thought I was too fragile to read between the lines. I nodded, playing dumb, heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. After she left, I stared at the bag Hannah brought me. The hoodie smelled like home, fabric softener, gasoline from my work truck, a little bit of her lavender shampoo where she'd hugged me goodbye. But the book? The book had something else. A tiny piece of paper tucked between the pages. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe because it felt heavier than it should have. Maybe because something inside me was already looking for an answer, even one I didn't want. It was a receipt. From the Riverbend Inn. A cheap motel just outside of town. 2 nights ago. 1 room. Paid in cash. The names were scrawled in sloppy handwriting, H. Miller. L. Adams. Hannah. Liam. Together. Together. My hands shook so hard the paper fluttered to the floor. I stared at it lying there, accusing me from the linoleum tiles, and everything around me blurred, the ticking clock, the pale sun leaking through the blinds, the low hum of hospital life outside my door. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. I closed my eyes and let the weight of it crush me. There was no going back. I don't know why I needed more proof. Maybe part of me still clung to the old Hannah, the girl who stole fries off my plate and sang off-key in the car just to make me laugh. The girl who swore, "It's you and me against the world." But the receipt sat there like a loaded gun on my side table, and my heart wouldn't let me pretend anymore. That night, after the nurses dimmed the hall lights and the world outside my window slipped into soft darkness, I picked up the hospital's old iPad, the one they let long-term patients borrow, and logged into our shared cloud account. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe an explanation. Maybe a reason to forgive her before the words burned a hole through my ribs. It took less than a minute to find it. Photos. Not many. Just 2. Hidden in a tucked-away album labeled Work Docs. The first photo was blurry, like it had been taken in a rush. A cheap motel nightstand. 2 hands reaching toward each other. One with the faint tan line of a wedding band. The other, a wrist I knew too well, Liam's, with the old snake tattoo curling around the bone. The second photo was worse. A bed. Wrinkled white sheets. Sunlight cutting through cheap curtains, throwing harsh gold lines across bare shoulders. Her hair. Her laugh, frozen in motion. His hand at her waist. It wasn't obscene. There was no nudity, no crude exposure. But the intimacy was unbearable. Her head tilted back in a way I hadn't seen in years, relaxed, unguarded. Her smile wide, carefree. Not the polite, exhausted smile she gave me at home. No. This was the smile of a woman whose whole body had forgotten grief. Forgotten guilt. The smell of antiseptic in my hospital room suddenly felt suffocating. I set the iPad down, hands trembling so hard the screen flickered. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the images branded themselves into the backs of my eyelids, a slideshow of everything I had lost without even knowing it. And then, as if summoned by the very betrayal vibrating through my blood, I heard soft footsteps outside my door. It was Hannah. Her voice drifted in first, low and laughing. But she wasn't alone. Liam's deeper rumble answered hers, their words muffled by the cheap hospital walls, but their tone was unmistakable. Intimate. Conspiratorial. I turned my head just enough to see through the thin crack between the door and the frame. There they were. Standing too close. Her hand on his arm. His fingers brushing her lower back in a gesture so quick and practiced it could have been missed, unless you knew what you were looking for. She laughed again, a soft, breathy sound, and leaned into him. His hand dropped away when a nurse passed by, but not fast enough. I watched Liam tuck a piece of her hair behind her ear. Something I used to do. Something sacred. Something small and devastating. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The betrayal was stitched into the air between them, electric, thick enough to taste. The overhead fluorescence buzzed faintly. The hallway smelled of sterile soap and old coffee. Somewhere down the corridor, a baby cried. A machine beeped once, twice. Life moved on like nothing was wrong. And me? I lay there, pretending to sleep, while the woman I loved more than my own blood smiled at another man like he was her future and I was already a ghost. She finally pushed open my door, face flushed, eyes too bright. Liam hovered a few feet behind her, hands in his pockets, trying to look casual. "Hey, baby," she whispered, tiptoeing to my bedside. "I brought your favorite." She lifted a styrofoam cup. Coffee. 2 sugars, no cream. Just like always. I forced my eyes to flutter open, slow, drugged movements, like I was still half asleep. She kissed my forehead gently, her lips cool against my burning skin. "You're doing so good," she whispered. "You're getting stronger every day." Behind her, Liam nodded, giving me a thumbs up. The rage that boiled in my chest nearly choked me. But I smiled. A small, weak smile. Because I knew something they didn't. I wasn't dead yet. And if they thought I was too broken to notice, too fragile to act, they were dead wrong. After they left that night, the room felt colder. The walls seemed to lean in, squeezing the air out of my lungs. I stared at the ceiling, the floor drip ticking beside me like a cruel metronome, and wondered how I got here. I used to think heartbreak felt like knives. But it doesn't. It feels like drowning, slow, invisible, inevitable. I didn't sleep. Instead, I replayed every moment we ever had, backwards, forwards, inside out, searching for the cracks I missed. The night I proposed under a fireworks sky and she cried, not because she was happy, but because she was scared. The time she stayed late at work and smelled like mint soap, not lavender. The way she started laughing a little too hard at Liam's jokes around the bonfire. Every memory had a hidden bruise I hadn't seen until now. Maybe part of me knew, even back then. Maybe part of me chose not to see. Because admitting it would have meant admitting I wasn't enough for her. And God, I needed to believe I was enough for something. Morning came gray and brittle. A nurse with tired eyes came in to check my vitals. She smiled gently, the way people do around broken things. I smiled back. Lied again. Told her I was fine. When she left, I sat up, slow, every bone in my body screaming, and reached for the little journal my physical therapist had given me. Write down your goals, he said. Recovery's as much mental as it is physical. So I opened the journal. I didn't write, walk again. I didn't write, get stronger. I wrote one thing. Find the truth. And under it, like a prayer. Don't let her bury you. It wasn't just about Hannah and Liam anymore. It was about me. The man lying in this hospital bed wasn't the man who kissed her forehead goodbye every morning. That man died somewhere between the flashing headlights and the hospital monitors. The one who survived. He had nothing left to lose. Later that day, Hannah showed up again. This time alone. She wore a green sweater I loved, the one she used to pull over her knees when we watched movies. It hung on her differently now. Looser. Like she was shrinking under the weight of her own choices. She sat beside me, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl waiting for judgment. Hey, she said softly. You look better today. I didn't answer right away. I watched her instead, the nervous tap of her foot, the way her thumb kept worrying the edge of her jeans, the flicker of guilt when she looked at me. I wanted to scream. To grab her shoulders and shake the truth out of her. But instead, I smiled. Yeah, I croaked. Feel stronger. Her shoulders sagged with relief. And that's when I realized. She wasn't visiting out of love. She was visiting out of guilt. Keeping vigil over the man she thought she had already killed, with her betrayal, if not with her hands. I was thinking, she said, voice trembling slightly, when you get out, maybe we could take a trip. Get away from all this. Start fresh. Fresh. Like you can slap a new coat of paint over a sinking ship. I nodded slowly. Sounds nice. She smiled, watery, fragile. And I filed that moment away. Stored it beside the receipt, the photos, the late-night whispers. Because if I was going to survive this, truly survive, I needed to be smarter than the pain. Smarter than the love that still pulled at my ribs like a phantom limb. That night, I made a plan. Not revenge. Not yet. First, I needed to be sure. Sure of what they did. Sure of who they were now. Sure that I wasn't just the tragic fool in a story they'd already rewritten without me. I borrowed the nurse's phone under the pretense of ordering food. Quick search, Riverbend insecurity footage policy. Small town, small minds. No security cameras in the hallways. Only one at the front desk. But enough. Enough to prove who checked in, and when. Enough to drive a stake through the heart of the lies she was still spinning in my hospital room. I also called my cousin, Jason. He wasn't close to Hannah. Never liked her, actually. Said she was too polished, too perfect to be real. I ignored him back then. Now, I was ready to listen. "Jace," I rasped when he answered, "I need a favor." "Name it, man." "I need you to pick up something for me." I told him where. Told him what. He didn't ask questions. Didn't even hesitate. That's the thing about real family. They don't need the whole story to have your back. The next morning, Jason showed up. He walked into my hospital room with a small manila envelope tucked under one arm and a look on his face like he wanted to throw up. He handed it to me without a word. I waited until he left. Then I opened it. Inside. A printout of the guest ledger. 2 blurry still frames from the motel's front desk camera. One of Liam. One of Hannah. Together. Arms touching. Laughing. And the timestamp? The exact night I lay unconscious in ICU, machines breathing for me, blood pumping through borrowed plastic tubes. While I fought for my life, they celebrated their freedom. It didn't even feel like heartbreak anymore. It felt like something colder. Cleaner. Like a wire snapping inside me. I sat there for a long time, staring at those pictures, letting them burn away whatever pieces of the old Evan still clung to life. Then I tucked the evidence under my pillow. Smiled to myself. And waited. Because Hannah had one more visit scheduled. And this time, when she walked through that door, she was walking straight into the fire. She came in wearing her best mask. A fresh white sweater, hair tied back in that loose, messy bun that always used to make me weak. Carrying a to-go cup and a too bright smile. Like she thought she could play house in a hospital room. "Morning, babe," Hannah said, setting the coffee down on the side table. "I got your favorite." I didn't reach for it. Didn't smile. Just watched her, really watched her, the way you study a fire you know is about to burn everything down. She hesitated. "You okay? You look tired." I shifted a little in bed, wincing like it hurt more than it did. "Yeah. Just, a lot on my mind." She smiled, relieved, like she thought it was about bills or work or recovery. I let the silence stretch until it snapped tight between us. Then I said, "Do you love me, Hannah?" The question landed like a slap. Her hands froze mid-adjustment of the blanket. Her face tried to hold the smile, but her eyes, God, her eyes, flinched. "Of course I do," she said, too fast. "Even now?" I asked, voice soft. "Always," she whispered. I let her lie. One last time. Then I slid my hand under the pillow and pulled out the manila envelope. Her eyes locked onto it like it was a live grenade. "What's that?" she asked, voice thin. I didn't answer. Just opened it. Took out the photos. Laid them carefully on the blanket between us, like laying knives on a table. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "I know everything," I said quietly. "The motel. The nights. The lies." Her mouth opened, then closed. No words. Only guilt. Pure and raw. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. But then I remembered the way she laughed with him outside my room. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear for him. The way she kissed my forehead with his touch still fresh on her skin. I stared at her. Hard. Cold. "I gave you my whole life," I said. "Every broken piece. Every good day. Every bad one. And you gave me a death sentence wrapped in a kiss." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. Not anymore. Evan, please, she finally whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I laughed. A hollow, broken sound. It never is. She reached for my hand. I pulled it away. You and Liam deserve each other, I said, voice steady. But you don't deserve me. I saw the moment it hit her. That she wasn't just losing me, she was losing the man who would have fought to the death for her. And once you lose someone like that, you never get them back. I pressed the call button for the nurse. Hannah blinked. Evan, please. The nurse appeared. I smiled politely. I'm feeling tired, I said. Can you escort my visitor out? The nurse glanced between us, sensing the tension but saying nothing. Professional. Efficient. Hannah stood there for a beat longer, shaking, lips pressed white. Goodbye, Hannah, I said. And this time, I meant it. She walked out. And the door clicked shut behind her like the final nail in the coffin of the life we once had. I lay back against the pillows, chest aching, but not from pain. From relief. I wasn't dying anymore. I was waking up. The first thing I noticed after Hannah left was how quiet the world became. Not empty. Not broken. Just, still. Like the storm had finally passed, and all that was left was the slow, steady work of rebuilding. The nurses came in, adjusted my IVs, fluffed my pillows, smiled a little differently. Maybe they could feel it too, that something heavy had been lifted from the room. I slept for the first real time in weeks. Deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight was pouring through the window. Warm. Honest. No secrets in it. And for the first time since the accident, I didn't think about Hannah first. I thought about me. It wasn't an easy recovery. There were days when the pain in my ribs made it hard to breathe. Days when standing felt like lifting a mountain. Nights when I lay awake in the rehab center bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if starting over was even possible at 36. But every small victory mattered. Every step. Every breath. Every heartbeat that wasn't for her anymore. 6 months later, I stood in front of my old truck, keys in hand, the engine rumbling like an old dog happy to see me. The house was gone, sold in the divorce. She kept the furniture, the dishes, the damn wedding album. I kept the truck. The tools. The name my father gave me. A fair trade. I moved 2 towns over, close enough to familiar roads, far enough to breathe new air. Got a small apartment above a hardware store. Smells like wood shavings and coffee in the mornings. It's not much. But it's mine. All mine. Sometimes people ask if I ever heard from Hannah again. I did. A letter. A long, rambling apology about mistakes and timing and finding herself. I didn't finish it. I didn't need to. Some things don't deserve space in your new life. Liam tried to reach out too. A weak, late-night voicemail filled with slurred words and half-baked regret. I deleted it without listening to the end. There's a diner down the street from my apartment, old booths, burnt coffee, the kind of place that knows your order by the second visit. That's where I met Julia. She wasn't looking for a project. I wasn't looking for a savior. We just talked. Easy. Honest. 2 people who knew what it was like to be cracked open and still choose to stand. She smiles with her whole face. Laughs with her shoulders. Doesn't flinch when I talk about the past. Doesn't promise to fix me. Just sits there, patient and real, letting me heal at my own damn pace. Maybe that's what real love is supposed to be. Not fireworks. Not promises you can't keep. Just a hand you can hold steady, even when the world tilts. Sometimes I still catch myself looking back. Memory is stubborn that way. But I don't live there anymore. I live here. Where the air smells like sawdust and fresh coffee. Where the sun hits my window just right. Where my heart beats steady, not for anyone else. Just for me.